Have you ever wanted to have a conversation with someone, but you don't have enough time? Maybe you're just rushed to get to the next thing and you can't continue the conversation. You can't ask all the questions that you want to ask. That happens to me all the time, which is why this conversation that we're going to have today is so important, because it's one that's been on my heart for a while. I can't wait for you to hear from our guest today. Stay tuned. I am so glad you're here. If you have not already heard part one of my conversation with our incredible guest today, please make sure you search around and click on part one, because you're going to want to make sure that you get the lowdown on all the details that we've been talking about with this incredible woman who has had a life change, so to speak. A lot of hard things have happened in her life, but really they've changed the trajectory of her life for the better, in that she's telling her story to as many people as she can and getting them the help that they need. Would you please help me welcome back for a second conversation, Miss Gessie Thompson. You're so cute in your little white shirt.
Thank you.
And you said that white is the color of?
Fibroids awareness.
Fibroids awareness. It's a big deal, because I bet mostly women are in our audience today, and I bet if we had a showing of hands, either they are struggling with it or somebody they know close to them
Absolutely.
is struggling with it. And it can be completely detrimental in the sense that for you, your major symptom was infertility. That was how you knew there was trouble in paradise.
Yep.
And we've got 10 years, you told us in part one, 10 years of infertility treatments, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent. And then finally your sweet miracle daughter that we show enough met a few minutes ago.
Show enough.
She came in like a whirlwind a few minutes ago.
Yes, ma'am.
She is beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I'm curious to know, did she surprise you guys? Were you in the process of trying to have a baby at the moment that you conceived? Or were you kind of at the point where you had given up and you're like done with the whole thing?
So after our fourth IVF cycle and third myomectomy, I just came to a point where I hit a wall.
I bet, yeah.
I was like, God, do I hear you saying adoption? What? Oh, yes,
Which is
Lord.
an honorable choice.
And that's what I'm saying.
Choice,
We believe in adoption.
Yeah.
I mean, we're grafted in, right? Come on.
Yeah.
So I believe in adoption. And I was like, my husband and I always felt like that was really an important, it was something we wanted to consider doing anyway. And I was like, you know what? I've been through too much at this point. And I said, God, but I knew, I did know this. I said, God, if it's what you've ordained, I'm gonna give you a Gideon now. I need to know, but I need to know. But because we couldn't get pregnant naturally, we literally had to do IVF. My thing was, God, if this really is, then we'll do the next IVF cycle. And I went to I really hit my knees. I really started to seek the Lord. Lord, I need to know. This is not something I'm just going to do because I'm going to go ahead and do another one. I need to know. And he made it very clear through different voices, different people in my life, and, just things that were being echoed in terms of stuff my husband, he was saying through my husband, of course. But my husband was so amazing. He was like, listen, this is your body. I want a biological child, but I'm not the one on the operating table.
Yeah.
This is something you need to hear from the Lord for yourself. And I was kind of mad because I wanted to what is the Lord saying to you? But he was like, no, you need, and this is really important because I didn't realize that, when we're about to go through something, the Lord will give us a word. And it was really critical because I was praying about it, I got confirmation, and then my godmother, she just out of the blue, she didn't even know what I was battling, and what I was praying about, because I was really keeping it close to the vest. And she says to me, Gessie, I went to a prayer meeting, and I stood in the gap for you, and they said to me that this time next year, you will be holding your baby. This time next year. Now, she didn't know that actually was right in alignment with what we ended up doing, because if we did the next IVF cycle this time next year, we would have literally have had the baby a month later, right?
Yeah.
So it was right in alignment. But even more than that, we had so many struggles in the pregnancy where even after I got pregnant, 21 weeks, they said that there was a condition that I had. At 21 weeks, they told me I might want to consider terminating my pregnancy. This pregnancy that took us 10 years.
Did you consider it even for a second?
Not for a second. I told them, I said, listen, I said, we are people of faith. It took us 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
I said, we're people of faith.
Getting
We
to
believe
21
in miracles.
weeks in
Right.
and of itself is a miracle.
We believe in miracles,
Yeah.
right? And 5 weeks later, we were hospitalized because the condition worsened. Then they had the neonatal people telling me all these things about how the baby was going to be born with necrotic. Like literally, they were like, within 72 hours, you're going to have this baby. Because after this condition happens, when it worsens like this, it's called fetal growth restriction, and then it's reversal of blood flow. So the fibroids had come back, and they were pulling the lifeblood away from my child. So when I say she fought to get here, she fought to get here. You know?
And how many weeks?
So that weekend, the doctor says, well, we're hoping your wife makes it through this weekend, because within 72 hours, textbook, I was supposed to give birth. To the tune of 8 more weeks, I was still in that hospital.
8 more weeks.
8 more weeks.
So she's never done what anybody's
Never.
told her.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So then she's in a safe
So the
zone
doctors,
to be
yeah,
born.
like the doctors even told, they said, Mrs. Thompson, you know, we have to apologize to you because we didn't want to scare you, but you have to understand, textbook, this doesn't happen.
I love this so much.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because there's a great
textbook.
physician who,
Yes.
when he chooses to, it's his choice. But when he chooses to, he can override textbooks and statistics and all that stuff.
Every single one.
He's the great physician.
So
And
we ended up 8 weeks later.
Having
And
that baby.
then at that point, they were like, well, the baby's ready, and you don't have to have emergency surgery if we schedule it, and they did it. You know, we had some more complications.
What was
along
that
the way.
celebration like when that baby was born?
Well, I had multiple complications from the surgery because my heart stopped on the operating table, so it was crazy.
You just glazed over that like it was no big deal.
No, I'm saying, you're right. So I said it. So we went into surgery, and all I know is things went like black, and my husband, they could get him out of here, get him out of here. Mm-hmm. And they said, Mrs. Thompson, you're gonna hear the baby cry, and then everything is gonna go black. And then they put me under general anesthesia because it was a C-section. Then they put me under general anesthesia, and all I knew is I had a child. I didn't even know what it was, okay? And my husband, he's freaking out. He's like, what happened? So because of how long it took from all the scarring, how long it took for them to get to my child, to Nia, it basically caused my heart to stop. And when I say, like, it was a lot of healing, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't get to touch her until the next day. You know, I literally had to be wheeled to her. I had so much of a long road in terms of healing.
Yeah.
But it was, I remember that first time I held her, and she was in an incubator. She was so tiny. And all the nurses said the same, that child is feisty. That child, one nurse said, she says, I don't know who this child is gonna be, but I hope I'm around to see how she changed the world.
Wow, that's awesome.
I was like...
We would concur with the nurse that she is going to change the world. That girl is something else.
Whew, but literally, she has changed my life. I say
That's great.
I gave birth to her, but she birthed me into my purpose.
She did. Because here you are,
Literally.
sitting on this sofa amongst, many conversations you've had, places that you've been invited to speak. Your book has gone out to so many people who are being made aware of really the issue and who feel licensed now. They feel inspired to open up their mouth and say, here's where I'm struggling.
Right.
How can I get some help for that? And I love the organization that you have because it's helping women practically to figure out, can you give us, we're gonna put online how people can find you and where they can get more information.
Sure.
But even like I was asking you in the back as we were eating dinner just a little while ago, what are, would you say, just some practical health things, whether it's eating or whatever else you would suggest that you have really seen revolutionize women's health, men and women, but particularly in this case, women. Just sort of label those things for somebody that's sitting on the other side of the screen going, what can I start doing tomorrow to start helping to put myself in a better place health-wise?
The very first thing you have to do is decide that I'm taking ownership for my health. That's number one. Because too many people feel like my health is my doctor's responsibility. But we say, no, no, no. Healing is God's job, but it's your responsibility, right? So you have to do the work of learning.
Be mindful of what you're doing to your body.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you decide that and you put that mindset on, then it's understand that the way God designed our bodies is to use your food as your medicine. So that's what we teach people to do, is to use food as your medicine. Once you realize that my food is actually healing or hurting me, you think twice about what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is actually having one or two impacts right now.
Yeah.
And I understand that I don't just want to eat to not be hungry. Most people eat to just not be hungry. They don't eat actually to heal their bodies, right? So that's a big part of our program, is helping people make that mindset shift.
Okay, we need to settle in here for a little bit on this issue, because I just think this is such a hard thing.
It's huge.
In our culture, particularly those of us, I know there are lots of people who watch and they do not live in the Western part of the world, or they don't live in America, but particularly for those of us who do. This struggle is huge for me right now. I mentioned it a few moments ago jokingly with the people that are in our audience, because we live in a country that is not helpful in this regard. So they are approving, our country is approving all sorts of genetically modified everything, and that's what's available to us. So a person, an average American going into their local supermarket that doesn't have the funds to spend on organic everything, which the label says that, but it's not necessarily that. But you're going into your grocery store to just buy the healthiest bread, so as far as you can tell, that's it, or the healthiest meat that you can in that grocery store, or vegetables. But if that's all that is available to you, what is how does a mom, how does a mom with a bunch of kids, sons and daughters she's trying to feed, how does she make wise choices when that's what the grocery store has?
So so many layers of what you just said right there. Number one is understanding, okay, as a Christian, we know the difference between the narrow road and the broad road, right? So narrow is the path, meaning the road to disease is broad, okay? It's broad, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's popular.
And it's fast food.
Yeah, that's why I said it's easy, cheap,
it's fast.
right?
Yeah.
Everywhere you turn around. But the road to healing is narrow, it's more expensive, and it's less popular, right? So the very first thing is deciding, I'm worth it. My health is worth it. And I say this, I can't say this enough, because it's gonna drive your decision making, right? It's very critical to understand that my health is worth it. The health of, I'm not just keeping them from having, from being sick right now, but I'm keeping them from developing things like diabetes and cancer, and those are more expensive in the long run. Right?
Yeah.
And understanding that I want to keep my child from having heart disease and all those kind of things. The second thing is understanding what foods are healthy and what are not. So you got to get educated, right? And like I said, we have a free food list for people to understand what foods are inflammatory, what's not, right? And then you can know that literally in your regular grocery stores, there are food markets, there are farmers markets where they have locally grown produce. And you don't have to have the organic label if you understand that if I actually want to know if something is organic or not, because pesticides are a very important thing, okay? The pesticides actually, they're toxins that will pollute our bodies. They poison our bodies. So, but you can find
them all over.
And they're seeds like Monsanto. They're seeds that are actually growing. They're killing your food from the inside out. It's terrible what's happening in the food industry right now. But here's the deal. You can know for yourself. You go to a farmer's market. Let's say you buy a pack of blueberries. You want to know, this is a local farmer's growing this, and I want to know if it's organic. You could put it in a mason jar, watch it for 72 hours. If it becomes white and fuzzy, it's not organic. But if it just withers and browns, it is. Without the organic label, it's just locally grown. So that's a way you can save. You see what I'm saying? It's understanding, wait a minute, if I look at foods that are locally grown, my produce, and then a lot of it, like Kroger's, they have a great organic department. But like I said, with farmers markets and food co-ops that are popping up, especially after What the Health. After What the Health, anybody watch What the Health? So, okay.
Have y'all heard of What the Health?
Yeah,
I've kind of been too scared to watch it. Because I heard that everybody that watches, because you don't eat anything that is an animal product.
Right.
Okay, is that a choice that you made after this struggle, or was that a way you already ate?
No, I actually, so after my last surgery, I ended up in full-blown menopause, okay? So it continued.
How old were you?
44 years old.
Okay.
But the menopause was not just, oh, you're menopausal. No, I had severe symptoms. that you could not live with, okay? And I knew I needed I needed help. And I was a traditionalist. I was the last thing from a naturalista that you ever, 10 surgeries, right? Okay? But my mother was like, they wanted to put me on the hormone replacement drugs. And I mean, there's tons of research that shows that they accelerate the development of cancer. And I was not about to go from menopause to cancer, okay? So I said, all right, you know what? I'm gonna believe God for a natural remedy. I'm finally like, okay, God, fine. I'll look into it.
Yeah.
But you know what happens? I got the patch and I used it for a little bit and I had a little bit of relief. And one day God said, all right, you think I'm playing? I'm sitting there in my office and he says, take it off now. I took it off, it's like a little Band-Aid. I was startled. You know, he gives you a word sometimes, like, okay, all right then. And I took it off and within like 2 weeks, he connected me with these naturopathic doctors that I partnered with and developed the program.
Now, I want to hop in. Let me hop in real quick because I want to separate two things. Okay. What you're saying with sort of your spiritual connection with these choices that you were making, that's not the same thing as saying, God, heal me. It's God saying to you, take your health into your own hands. And let me give you some wisdom on how to use what I have given you, the resources I've given you on this planet to heal yourself. No? Is that not
It's a combination. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the reason I say it's a combination is because some plant, some water, but God gives the increase.
Yes.
Right?
I mean,
so
ultimately, it's all Him.
Right.
Ultimately, it's all Him.
He's designed the body to heal itself.
Right.
Right? But here I am asking you, God, to heal me from high blood pressure, but I'm eating fried chicken.
Right.
Right? So we have
why'd you have to call out fried chicken specifically? That's the gospel bird, girl.
I know. But here's the deal. We have to say, wait a minute. God says, I give you wisdom. I give you information. Right? And this is funny. I remember I was at that event where we talked about, I had a major conversation at the lunch table. And I said, listen, in the Garden of Eden, what did God tell us to eat? And they said, the plants. Right? Fruit from the trees, plants of the earth. I said, and what did the animals eat? Can anybody answer that? What did the animals eat in Garden of Eden? Plants. Plants. They didn't eat us. The animals were our friends, not our food. Right? And I'm not an animal rights person. Like, you know, this is not about that. This is about what God has called us and how He allows our bodies to actually work optimally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's a miracle worker and He does things in spite of us. But isn't it time that we become the heroes in the story of our healing instead of the accomplices in the story of our disease?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that.
Right?
So
it's the education, so it's a combination.
So for the regular everyday working parent who doesn't think she can shut down, meat, or for example, something big and broad like that for her sons or her, her husband would not even imagine a life without meat and potatoes.
Can. This is what I do a family intervention. Number one thing, all y'all watch What the Health Together. I'm gonna tell you, you have to start with education.
Yeah.
You do a family intervention. And then from there, you start you transition and you do replacements of things that they would never even believe that they're healthy when they taste them because they're so delicious.
Okay.
Right? And once you start doing that little by little, it could be the juices that you drink, the fruit that you have in the morning, right? And there are certain things that don't have to be organic, like cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelons, even mango and avocado. There's something called the Dirty Dozen in the Clean 15 list. And those things that are on the Clean 15 don't have to be organic because they're grown in a way that they're actually cleaner. But that helps you to just start making, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Right? It's a journey, it's a lifestyle. And what we tell people is, you didn't come here overnight, right? So be patient with yourself and take steps. So, for somebody who's dealing with a health crisis, they're gonna be more motivated to cut cold turkey. Because they're trying to save their lives. I mean, literally.
And what else other than food would you say is one of your suggestions to women who are struggling? Stress.
So that's a huge part of our program as well, stress management. Because you can be eating right, but your stress, the toxins that your body is being flooded with on a regular basis, cortisol, and that's from pressure. It's not even just anxiety, from pressure. You're on the road all the time. You've got all this stuff you got to go you're rushing from one place to another. What does that do? pressurizes your body.
So we need margin in our calendar.
Margin, yes, breathing room. And also time to pause and be silent and just listen.
And that literally
Receive
has a
God,
physiological, just it affects our body.
Yes, impact. What it does is actually helps to unblock your meridians and helps you to release the stress, okay? Because it stores up in your body. You ever notice like you're in the middle of doing something and your shoulders are hunched or your teeth are gritted, your hands are tight. Why? Because you've literally been in a pressure situation. So we say to people, set a timer every 2 hours and do a breath check. Just on your alarm, just stop, breathe, and exhale for like a minute, just to release that stress out of your life. Because what you're doing is when that cortisol is, there it is, when that cortisol is present in your body, it actually upregulates the effect of the toxins in your body. So I'll give you an example. 2014 was one of the best years of my life, but it was also one of the worst years of my life because it was high stress, okay? A lot of stuff was going on that made it like literally the most stressful year of my life. Fibroids that I had tripled in size in that 1 year because of stress, right? So that's why if you're eating
How did you know it was because of stress, though?
Because everything else was the same.
Okay.
But
so
that
the only thing that had exponentially grown was your stress level.
Exactly. And when I talk to women every day, literally they can be doing everything right, but if they're not dealing with the margins, if they're not learning that no is a complete sentence, if they're not putting in proper boundaries, and if they're not actually, what do we say, re-examine their relationships, reprioritize some, reposition some, say no to certain things, say not now to others, right? And
I always say we need a no anointing on our lives.
Absolutely.
We need a no anointing.
Absolutely.
Just to be able to have to not feel guilty. That's the thing, is we feel so guilty if we need to say no to someone or something and have some margin in our life. Even if, because you know, every no is a simultaneous yes. You're saying yes.
To something.
To something, whether it's to be at your kid's soccer game
Yep.
or to have a Friday night where you actually are just at home, enjoying being at home, relaxing.
So something I read in my devotional this week was no. First of all, it's a complete sentence, right? I don't have to tell you why as well. That's the other thing. If we say no, well, that's because. No, I don't owe you that necessarily, depending on who you are. But no does not make me bad, right? Because no, saying no to you sometimes is the only way I can say yes to myself.
Yeah.
And understand that in order for me to be able to say a healthy yes, I have to be able to say no to the right things.
Yeah, yeah.
And understanding that that is a huge part. And I say to people, retire the cape. Take that cape off. There's
I'm not your super.
That's right, exactly. Retire the cape. Because guess what? There are, what is it? I say, superheroes are not real, but real women are superheroes.
That's great. That's great.
Because when you learn to actually be authentic and real, that's when that God's grace multiplied unto you.
That's right.
You ever do something like, man, how was I able to do that? Well, you had God's grace on you, right?
Yeah.
But you learn to say no. You learn to say no to the right things and yes to the right things. And you learn that saying yes to something means I have to take something else off the list.
Yeah.
That's another big thing. We keep adding things to our list. We say, and that's one of the exercises we do in our program. If you're going to say yes, what do you say? If you're going to start one thing, what are you going to stop?
Mm-hmm. And I love that this is so practical in every area of our life, because I'm thinking about how I had a friend of mine say to me recently, because I have an affinity for white shirts. Actually, I love the look of crisp white shirts and white shirts. I just think they're beautiful. So she said to me, we were kind of doing a little shopping. I think we were in Target.
Target.
And I was grabbing another white shirt, and she said, now, if you get this white shirt, there need to be two that go. She said, for every one thing you bring in, there need to be two that go.
It's actually very good.
And so not only are our lives cluttered, but our spaces are cluttered.
That's right.
Our drawers are cluttered. Our pantries are cluttered. Our freezers are cluttered. So we don't even know that what we were going to eat is way back there in the back. We forgot about it from 3 months ago, because we have put so much stuff in our space that now we can't even enjoy the things that we have anymore. They're not even gifts anymore. Now we're frustrated. We're overwhelmed. We're wearing the same thing over and over and over because it's all we can see in our closet with the mound of stuff that's on the floor. So just to your point, that if we don't have the discipline, if we're taking one thing into our calendar or our space, then we need to take some other things out. These are good. These are really good practical tools.
Because think about it. If I keep just adding, I'm now being crushed under the pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm carrying more. You weren't built to carry that. right? That's the other thing we teach is cast your care. Not just cast it once. Keep casting it all day, every day. Keep casting your care. Allow the Lord to carry your burdens, right? The yoke means he's carrying us. He's pulling us in that wagon. We're so used to being the pack mule that we want to carry everything. He's like, I didn't build you to do that. So your body's breaking down. Your mental's breaking down. You're not even able to be who you're purposed to be because you're doing what you weren't born to do.
Yeah,
right?
that's good. Yeah.
But when we do, God can be glorified.
That's awesome. That's really great. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you being willing to share your story here, not only on the sofa, but here in this book that you need to get your hands on, and share with your friends who may be struggling with this, or maybe your own life, just some miracle stories in here. But also, I love that what you're offering, and we'll put a link so folks can connect to you, because you're offering some practical advice and some practical wisdom. Gessie has made it her business. This is her life. She's made it her business to really research. At the beginning of this, you were like, I don't know anything about fibroids. How am I supposed to share with others?
Don't let me.
But now you have researched and studied and figured out how, as women in particular, but men as well, how we can take control of our health. And those practical tips are necessary in this day and age when we've got the culture that's sort of steering us in a stressful direction.
Absolutely. And high pressure.
And high pressure. We need a voice that says, hey, it's okay to say no. It's okay to take the narrow path and eat differently than everybody else is eating for you and your family.
And it's yummy.
And it's
yummy. Can I stop and say it's yummy?
That's really the question. Is it delicious?
It is. I mean, the other day I made this black bean, sweet potato, dandelion stew over some black quinoa.
Wait a minute, back up.
Yes.
Did you say dandelion?
Yes. It was black bean, think black beans and rice, Latina style, right?
Okay, I like that.
It was black beans, it's black turtle beans with purple sweet potato with some dandelion in it. It would slap your mama good.
It would slap your mama good.
It would slap your mama good.
Whose mama? Your mama or my mama?
Well, I don't know.
Y'all, thank Gessie for being on the program with us today.